All right, today we're going to look at 5.5. We're going to do the factor theorem, and then this is day 3. All right, so we're going to divide polynomials, and we're going to relate the remainder theorem and the factor. So first, we're going to start with a review. So let's practice these two problems. This is stuff that we've done already. So workout number 1, workout number 2, stop the video, and then restart it when you're done, and we'll see if you did it right. Okay, so hopefully we're coming back. So we have x minus 8 of x cubed minus 11x squared plus 14x plus 80. So you take the first term inside divided by the first term outside, and that gives you x squared. Put that number on top. Distribute. So x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 8 is negative 8x squared. Change the signs. So this gives us negative 3x squared plus 14x. Bring down the next term. Now you have a new inside term divided by the outside term. And that's what goes on top. Multiply that new term, distribute, so that'd be negative 3x squared plus 24x. Change the signs. Bring down the plus 80. Now you have a new inside term. That's what goes on top. Distribute the negative 10, so negative 10 times x is negative 10x. Negative 10 times 8, negative 8 is positive 80. Change the signs. So we have 0 remainder, so this is just our answer. All right, so let's look at the synthetic division one. Step 1 is to set this equal to 0, solve for x. That's what goes out in front. List the coefficients. So cubed has a coefficient of 1, squared has a coefficient of 10, x is not there, so we need a 0, and then negative 125. Drop it down. So 1, negative 5 times 1 is negative 5, add. Negative 5 times 5 is negative 25, add. Negative 5 times negative 25 is positive 125, and we get 0. So now we need to make sure that we write our answer. So remember, this was a cubic function, so it's going to be 1 degree less, which will be squared, so it's going to be 1x squared. And then after a squared comes an x, so it would be 5x, and then after an x comes a constant, so it would be negative 25. Right? So let's go on. So now we have a polynomial f of x has a factor x minus k if and only if f of k equals 0. What that really means is that if, when you use synthetic division, if the last term is equal to 0, the last number that you get when you add the last terms is equal to 0, then that means that it's a factor. So for instance, basically if you had a number 6 and you had a factor 3, so 3 goes into 6 2 times with none left over. And so 3 is a factor of 6. That's what they're talking about, except where they're talking about polynomials. Okay, so let's practice. All right, so we have 2x cubed plus 11x squared plus 18x plus 9 given that f of negative 3 equals 0. So what we want to know is we know that x plus 3 is a factor, but we want to know what the other factors are. So you start with x plus 3, you set it equal to 0, and you solve for x. Right? And so that's how we put negative 3 out front. And then we wrote exactly like we just did in the practice problem. Now we're going to drop down the 2, negative 6, 5, negative 15, 3, negative 9, 0. So last time we stopped here, but this time the directions are to factor the polynomial. So we have to go one step further. So we're going to go ahead and write the polynomial just like we did in the practice problem we just did. But now we're going to factor. So I'm going to take 2 times 3, right? Slide and multiply. Ask yourselves what two numbers multiply to make 6 and add to make 5. So it would be 2 and 3. So I'd get x plus 2, x plus 3. Divide and reduce. And we do bottoms up. So we're going to have x plus 1, 2x plus 3, and then the last term comes from the problem, x plus 3. So those three factors are the complete factorization. So we answered the problem, factor the polynomial. And if I was to FOIL this out, these three polynomials, if I was to FOIL this out, I would get this answer. So let's try another one. So step 1, we want to basically factor this whole thing. So we want to take x plus 4, set it equal to 0, solve for x. So we have negative 4. So we have the cubed, and then we have the squared, and then we have the x, and then we have the constant. Drop down the first term. Multiply. Add, multiply, add, multiply, add. So we get 0. We should get 0 because they told us it was a factor. So now write it as a polynomial. 3x squared plus x minus 2. So now we're ready to factor. Negative 6. What two numbers multiply to make negative 6 and subtract to make 1? So that would be positive 3 and negative 2. So I'd have x plus 3, x minus 2. Divide and reduce. X plus 1, x minus 2/3. Bottoms up. So I have x plus 1, 3x minus 2, and then the last one is what came from the problem, x plus 4. So those three factors are what 3x cubed plus 13x squared plus 2x minus 8 factor into. All right, so let's try another one, make sure that we have it. So we're going to do x minus 4, set it equal to 0, solve for x. Make the polynomial, or make the synthetic division. So we have 1, and then negative 6, and then 5, and then 12. Drop this down. Multiply. Multiply. So it would be negative 3, and then multiply, and we get 0. So we should get 0 because they told us it was a factor. So now I'm going to have x cubed minus 2x minus 3, and I'm going to factor. So I don't have to slide and multiply because there's only just a 1 in front of the x squared. So what two numbers multiply to make 3 and subtract to make 2? So negative 3, negative 2, that'd be negative 3 and 1. So x minus 3, x plus 1, and then the problem, the factor from the problem. All right. So tomorrow, the other thing that we're going to do is finding the zeros of a function. Okay, so this is a little bit different. This says zeros, which really means solutions. So now we're going to go one step further. We're going to do everything we just did. We're going to factor, and then we're going to set the factors equal to 0 and solve. All right, so every single time we do a problem, we just do one more step. All right, so again, zeros means solutions. So it's saying one of the solutions is 2, and find the rest. So they already did the work for us. Usually we have to set it equal to 0 and solve, but like they already did it for us. So that was nice of them. So we just go ahead and start with 2, list the coefficients, and drop down the first term, 1, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. All right, so now we start, this was a cubic function, so this is a squared. Since it's 0, I don't need to write down x. And then negative 9. All right, so now we're going to factor. Difference of two squares. So the only thing that's used, last time we stopped right here, this time we're going to keep going. So because we're going to need to set them equal to 0 and find the answers. Sorry, my brain works faster than my hand sometimes. So x is equal to 3, x is equal to negative 3, and then we have the answer from the problem. All right, so all we did was just do this one extra step where we set the factors equal to 0 and solve for x. Everything else basically stayed the same. That's the nice thing about this chapter, is that once you get the previous steps, we just keep adding one more thing, and really the one more thing is something we've already done. All right, last example. So time for a little mini celebration on that. So 7, and then make sure everybody's there, the cubed, the squared, the x, and the constant. All right, bring down, multiply, and then add, and then multiply, and then add, and then multiply. We get 0. So write down, so this would be to the squared, this would be 5x, this would be 3. So now we're going to factor. What two numbers multiply to make 6 and add to make 5? 2 and 3, I feel like we already did this one. X plus 2, x plus 3, divide and reduce. So x plus 1, x plus 3 halves, bottoms up. I'll write it up here, I can run in my room. So x plus 1, and then this would be 2x plus 3. So again, usually we stop there, but because it says zeros, it wants us to find the solutions. So you take these guys and set it equal to 0. Set it equal to 0. Solve for x. So x is equal to -1. And minus 3, 2x equals -3. Divide by 2. X is equal to -3 halves. So our answers are the 7 from the problem, the -1, and the -3 halves. All right, so tomorrow we're going to work on these problems in class. So if you're not going to be there tomorrow, or you were absent on that day, then this is what we're going to work on in class. If you have to do it outside of class, please make sure you check your answers. Make sure you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, come get help. I'd love to help you.